dust to crown. How Airbnb became a $100 billion business empire from nothing? The most inspirational and insane empire-building stories involve people overcoming adversities and succeeding despite the odds. Rags to riches stories have existed since businesses first came into existence, but they still never fail to strike a chord among budding entrepreneurs about to take the leap.
You can choose a life of ease and comfort, or you can choose a life of service and adventure. Which one of those, when you're 90 years old, are you going to be more proud of?
One such startling story is of Airbnb. The Airbnb startup story is an odd tale of airbeds, cereal, and ramen. Born out of acute financial necessity, this bold idea burgeoned into a business empire, defying norms and redefining the hospitality terrain.
When I started this company like 15 years ago, I was totally broke. I had no status, had no power, no money. And I felt like what would make me happy was climbing a mountain and becoming incredibly successful.
Check out Airbnb jumping more than 4.5% today. It is also up more than 20% since the Fed meeting.
Airbnb has outperformed on volume and will continue to do so.
The tale of this phenomenal business empire of modern day begins in 2007. Young roommates and former schoolmates Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia, struggling to pay rent for their apartment in the expensive city of San Francisco. They're not ready to bow to this daunting fiscal challenge. Rather, they're thinking to turn it into a golden opportunity of lifetime. The broke Chesky and Gebbia are puzzled. In summer 2008, an opportunity knocks at their door when the city of San Francisco is buzzing with an industrial design conference and the hotels are filled to capacity. Perceiving a chance, Chesky and Gebbia offers their apartment to attendees, providing air mattresses and a warm, home-cooked breakfast. This gives birth to Airbed and Breakfast. Today, we know it as Airbnb, a classic example of something known as bootstrapping in finance.
Bootstrapping is the art of doing big things with small budgets. It's the skill of achieving ambitious goals through a combination of creativity, resourcefulness, and sheer determination rather than relying on large amounts of outside funding.
The road from an astute idea to a profitable business was not easy. The early days were fierce. No funding to back the idea, and the founders had to do legwork themselves, including creating a website, taking photos of listings, and going door to door to recruit hosts. Convincing people to open up their homes to strangers and concerns about safety and trust were the biggest issues.
I think I'm less a visionary than an expeditionary in the sense that I didn't have a vision. I discovered something. One weekend I couldn't pay rent. I decided to let people in my house, only to make money for the most part. I thought it'd be fun. And I ended up becoming friends with these people. And it made me realize that like these homes are these private spaces that you never let anyone in, but you understand why. There's no trust.
The broke Chesky and Gebbia had no money to fund the business and make their dream a reality. The urgency for money opened their minds and they came up with a creative fundraising idea. Why not sell something ingenious during 2008 presidential campaign between Barack Obama and John McCain? They created and sold special edition cereals called Obama O's and Cap'n McCain's. In modern-day finance, it's called crowdfunding. And with this, they generated a whopping $30,000 in sales.
This is literally how we funded the company. We sold collectible breakfast cereal.
And you became serial entrepreneurs.
Yes.
I think I produced.
You'll see that one's autographed by the actual President Obama.
And you handmade these, right?
We handmade these. We designed these with a team, and I literally hot glued this one myself.
And we thought to ourselves, our name at the time was Airbed and Breakfast. We've done a lot with the Airbeds. Maybe we should do more with the breakfast. And we came up with the idea to create a presidentially themed cereal, Obama O's and Captain McCain's. We created this concept, all original artwork designed. We got boxes printed. We even went to the supermarket and bought cereal and restuffed that cereal into our boxes. And we mailed 100 of each box to the reporters. And we thought, if we email them, they'll just delete the email. But if we send them a box like this, they're gonna have to ask us questions. They're gonna wanna know, where did this come from? They're gonna wanna hear our story. And sure enough, It worked. Within a week of having done that, we were on CNN again, talking about the breakfast cereal, and actually, this became the #1 political video of the day and was featured on the homepage. And that day when we were featured on the homepage, we sold a $40 box of cereal every 3 minutes. Within a week, we had sold $30,000 worth of cereal.
This money was then used to jumpstart Airbnb by putting it towards startup costs such as developing a website, marketing, and licensing. Although this money got Airbnb off the ground, but the founders were still far from being in the clear, and the worst was not over. Today's video is brought to you by Prime Emporio, your one-stop destination for various household and fashion products and accessories. Discover the ultimate shopping experience at their online store, offering an extensive range of products. Don't forget to check out their online store and treat yourself to something special. It seemed that the company took a turn for the worst. The founders were getting frustrated. The business wasn't getting enough buzzes and publicity. Its revenue flatlined to $200 per week, an amount which was not enough to absorb costs of running the business. The situation worsened, and to keep the idea afloat, the founders exhausted their credit cards. But the hope was still alive.
Almost in any history of any idea that's ever been launched, there comes a time in the early days where there's no customers, your assumptions were wrong, the way people actually wanted something delivered to them is different than what you had thought. And what they call this in the life cycle of an idea is the trough of sorrow. And it's a very bleak, dark time where you're just kind of trying to figure out how to get your idea off the ground.
Finally, Y Combinator's co-founder Paul Graham funded the idea by investing $20,000. This opened doors to get more investors, and soon the company attracted $600,000 investment from 2 other investors. It was now time to expand and introduce Airbnb to masses. The founders used Craigslist to advertise Airbnb's business. This risky strategy paid off. Craigslist was an already popular housing site. The founders knew that Craigslist had their ideal target audience, the people who look for accommodations other than hotels when they travel. By 2009, the company's valuation hit $2 million. In a decade down the road, the company grew at a compound rate of 15%, and its valuation hit around $18 billion before the COVID pandemic. Then, the big day comes. 10th December 2020 turns the fortunes for the company and its shareholders when the company gets listed on NASDAQ. Speculations and controversies start as the initial public offering prices the company at $68 per share. But the company's shares start trading at $139 per share and close the historic day at $144.71. On the first day of trading, the company becomes a $100 billion company. Its market capitalization exceeds Expedia's market valuation by 5 times and greater than the combined market values of Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt.
Airbnb shares have more than doubled in value on their US market debut, the biggest of the year. Shares open at $146, far above its IPO price of $68 each. That values the company at more than $100 billion.
This all happened when just a few months before the IPO, the company's bookings had fallen by 90%, and it looked to be on the verge of getting wiped out due to COVID-19. Suddenly, what happened that made the value of its shares more than doubled? It's worth noting that before the pandemic, Airbnb was at its peak with billions in cash on hand and had the plans to go public via non-traditional direct listing, meaning that it didn't need to raise any new money. It just wanted to let employees and investors cash out. The eye-popping rise in Airbnb's stock on its debut and such large first-day trading gains raised eyebrows. Market was flooded with conjectures that this might be a dirty act of underpricing the share by the lead manager of the IPO, so its clients can score large gains when the share starts trading. In such a scenario, the company can be a casualty as it misses out money that could be pocketed at a higher valuation. Interestingly, the Airbnb's earnings and cash flows that declined in 2019 and subsequent fall in business due to COVID-19 didn't jeopardize the IPO.
You lose 80% of your business in 8 weeks. And I knew there were questions. Is this the end of Airbnb? Will Airbnb exist?
Such a successful IPO should have been ecstatic for its founder, Brian Chesky, but it was somehow the saddest period of his life. While growing up, he desperately wanted to become successful. He had that image: if he gets successful, he'd have all friends and family around him, and the large sums of money would solve all the problems. The day Airbnb hit $100 billion valuation, he was lonelier than ever. Whenever he made time with friends and family, he felt the guilt of spending time with them and not working on the company.
When I started this journey is 2 things. The first thing is how lonely it would be, and it doesn't have to be, but it's almost like by default. You see, when I started Airbnb, I started with my friends, 2 of my friends. Then we hired people, and those people, they were employees, but they were also kind of our friends. And this notion that I was the boss, and there was a power imbalance, well, we're all like broke working at a 3-bedroom apartment. So what does it mean that I'm CEO? Like, that's kind of just a title. And so I felt really connected.
Airbnb is a goldmine case study that goes beyond its spectacular triumph, extending wisdom and practical lessons to entrepreneurs and industry leaders standing at the precipice of their disruptive journeys.